Last time we were talking about Bodhichitta, and we'll continue to do so. As Tsongkhapa says, Bodhichitta is really almost like the national highway of the Mahayana path, and it is the foundation for cultivation of all the good mind and the basis of all the extensive beneficial deeds. And in terms of collecting the two merits, it is really like a elixir that transforms ordinary substances into gold. So with this understanding, we should study Bodhichitta. So last time we finished a little bit reading about the meaning of ultimate Bodhichitta in verse number 7. So today I will continue to read from verse number 8. And the verse number 8 says, because of having found mental equality to phenomena, to sentient beings, to its activities, and the Supreme Buddha itself, hence its complete joy far excels. So that means when you talk about this ultimate Bodhichitta, if you ask from what spiritual ground the ultimate Bodhichitta is found, then this is answered by saying this is found from the first path of the first spiritual level of the 10 spiritual levels, which is called the very joyous level, Satambo. Now, why this first spiritual ground out of the 10 spiritual ground is called the very joyous level? This is called very joyous level because here you are able to realize selflessness, both in terms of the afflictive emotions and also in terms of the purified states, and thus you are able to develop this equality of mind towards all phenomena, including the negative emotions and including the positive emotions. Both the negative emotions and positive emotions are same in having no independent inherent existence. So this is the meaning of because of having found mental equality to phenomena. That's the meaning. The second, at this level, you also find mental equality to sentient beings. That means you are able to realize the sameness of oneself and other sentient beings. So there is no partiality as we ordinarily have towards other sentient beings. And much of the problem that we see today in the world is because of not having developed such a mental equality. Because of this, you develop partiality towards your friends, your relatives, towards yourself, and negligence and towards others, and especially your enemies. So that is the equality to all sentient beings. And this point is very, very important. As I briefly mentioned that if you really look at the nature of sentient beings, we are all same, exactly same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And also same in having the wish to get happiness and having the wish to remove suffering. We are completely same in that level. Okay? Right? And as I always say, when we were born, we are all equal. There is not much differentiation in terms of religion, in terms of this nation, that nation, and so forth. But unfortunately, as we grow up, we pick up many of these bad habits of making, division and discriminations. And it is important to realize that the mind that makes discriminations for oneself and for others, dividing, that process of mind which makes division is actually shows the smallness of the mind. Because at the fundamental level, there is no difference at all between all of us, whether you are from east or west, north or south, men or women. There may be some superficial differences, but basically, in terms of your emotional status, in terms of your longing for happiness, not wishing to suffering, we are exactly same. But as I said, as we grow up, we forget this fundamental sameness and we cling on to superficial differences, and we emphasize that so much that we are ready to kill each other also. So that is why we are having so much problem in today's world. But when you reach such a level, then you develop this mental equality towards all sentient beings. And then you also actualize that sameness or equality to your activities. To your activities means just as all sentient beings wish to put an end to suffering, just as you also wish to put an end to your suffering, similarly, all other sentient beings also wish to put an end to their suffering. So therefore, with this understanding, you develop this mental equality in terms of your activity towards yourself and towards others as of same nature. So that's the meaning of finding mental equality to your works, to your activities. And then next is finding mental equality to Supreme Buddha itself. And that means if you look at the ultimate nature of the Buddha and your ultimate nature, in other words, if you look at the emptiness nature of the Buddha and emptiness nature of yourself, there is no differences at all in terms of, on the level of the ultimate nature of emptiness, there is no difference between our emptiness and the emptiness of the Buddha, or even the emptiness of the tree and stones and so forth. So there also we are completely the same. So that is the meaning of achieving equality towards the Supreme Buddha itself. So therefore, because of having achieved these 4 levels of equality, you are able to develop this immense joy within yourself. I mean, this is a very important observation, you see. When you make this discrimination, division, you will never find joy and long-lasting happiness, because there is always an opponent or enemy to crush, to fight with, things like that. Okay? So it is your mental perception that you create all these divisions. But when you achieve all these different levels of equality, then your mind is filled with joy and happiness, because you are able to relate to everybody as being same in the ultimate sense of the term. Okay? So therefore, this level is called the level of great joy. So therefore, this level is a level where you have this very special and complete joy, which excels to many other kind of joys that we experience in our life. So therefore, this is called a very joyous spiritual level. Then verse number 9. Now, if we explain this a little bit further, first a brief explanation, then a little bit more explanation. Verse number 9 reads, being born, being extensive, being rejoicing, and also purity of thought, learned in the remaining definite emergence should be understood. So that means when you develop this ultimate bodhicitta, then you are born, you are being born as the spiritual child of the Buddha. You are born as being the spiritual child of the Buddha. So that means being born. And being extensive means because of cultivation of such a mind, your thinking in terms of your wishful prayers, it is extensive. And then there is also rejoicing, meaning that when it comes to working for the benefit of other sentient beings, there will be great joy. Okay, normally if you're asked to work for others, there will be a lot of reluctance. But when you see the sameness of yourself with all other sentient beings, And especially when you're able to see this great opportunity to serve and help others, then instead of having reluctance, you will be very forthcoming, and you will see that as a very special moment and will have a lot of joy. So that is called rejoicing. And your mental, then there is also the purity of thought. That means you have this very strong special sense of responsibility in helping all others. A small example that we can give is like a mother who very delightfully engages in helping her children. So it's something like that. Learned in the remaining. Learned in the remaining means the remain in terms of the remaining spiritual ground also, you become very well versed. You become thoroughly trained in the remaining spiritual grounds also. Definite emergence should be understood. So when you reach that level, then you also develop this very strong wish to emerge or come out from the lower levels. So there is a brief explanation of cultivation of this ultimate bodhicitta. Now, if you explain this a little bit further, this is explained in verse number 10. These 6 points that we already discussed. So this will be now gradually explained. Now, first, the seed is interest in Dharma. That means you plant a seed where you have very strong inclination and interest to the Mahayana teaching. The seed is interest in Dharma. So this is explained in terms of sowing a seed in the womb of the mother, and then finally the child is born. So like that, you have planted this seed having great interest in the Mahayana teaching, and then you also is born from the mother of supreme transcendence. So this wisdom perfection which you meditate, which means your meditation on shunyata or emptiness, is then becomes like the mother that produces the child. Okay. In the comfortable womb that arose from concentration. That means such a wisdom perfection is possible because of unified practice of calm abiding and special insight. So that is really the comfortable womb. So you abide in that womb, which arose from concentration, means unification of calm abiding and special insight. And compassion as the foster mother. And then this birth that already has, this wisdom perfection that already has been produced through the unification of karma abiding and special insight, is then further nurtured by the development or generation of great compassion. So it is with the presence of these 4 causes that one is born as the spiritual son or spiritual child of the Buddha. So there's the meaning of the first point out of the 6 points that we briefly discussed earlier. Then second point is extensiveness, okay, being born, that is explained. Now second is extensive, being extensive. Extensive means that one at that level has a very vast, extended attitude, which is a result of fulfilling 10 great prayers, 10 great aspirations, okay? And the next is rejoicing. The third is rejoicing. Rejoicing here means even if you are to work for the benefit of other sentient beings for a long time and rather intensely, you will not be defeated, you will not be discouraged. So that is the indication that you really have developed this rejoicing when it comes to working for other sentient beings, okay? So you will see that as a golden opportunity. And like for example, if you have to do something which you like very much, then you will never get tired. Then fourth is mental purity, purity of thought. Purity of thought means now you have already approached very close to enlightenment, and very soon you will be able to actualize the Buddhahood. And you have now known the method and means to actualize that Buddhahood. So it is in this sense that you have obtained that pure thought or special sense of responsibility. Learned in the remaining means one is well versed in the remaining of the spiritual grounds other than the first spiritual ground. So which means you become well versed how to cultivate the remaining spiritual ground. You know the causes for the remaining spiritual grounds, their nature, and so forth. Okay. Then definite emergence or renunciation here means you are able to know correctly the causes and the natures and the fruits, the terminologies that is being used. And when you mentally reflect on all these things, although you will have this very clear understanding in the conventional sense, but you will not see them as an object to develop grasping. So there will be no perception of seeing these objects as having inherent existence. And you will realize that as only something that is understood on the conceptual level. Now, when you develop the conviction that there is no object having inherent independent existence, then through that understanding, you will also be able to know that the subjective mind which perceives this, which cognizes this object, also is a mere object of conception and does not have inherent independent existence. So it is in this way that you emerge out from this level and move to the higher spiritual grounds. Then from verse 11, we'll talk about the 22 different types of bodhicitta. Because of accomplishing the 10 prayers, its extensiveness should be understood. Because of not getting saddened by long hardship, presence of enthusiasm should be internalized. So that means out of the 22 bodhicittas, in the case of the first bodhicitta, this first bodhicitta is compared to a ground, to the earth. Just as the earth is the basis for the production of all kinds of plants and trees and so forth. Similarly, when you achieve the middling level of the first path of accumulation, and then that acts as a basis and foundation for development of all qualities until you achieve Buddhahood. Because of oh, sorry. This already we read. No, this verse 11 already we read. Verse 12 also we already read. Verse 13 also we already read. Sorry. Because we were explaining these six points. So we finished reading verse 11. Because of accomplishing the 10 prayers, its extensiveness should be understood. Because of not getting saddened by long hardship, presence of enthusiasm should be internalized. Realization of closeness to enlightenment, because of having found its means, purity of thought should be understood. Is landed in other spiritual ground, mentally engaging as is presented, its conceptuality is understood. Because of its non-conceptuality, true, it as well. So I was talking about this non-conceptuality or having no independent existence, both of the subject and object, definite emergence, moving from the first spiritual ground, emerging from that and moving to the higher spiritual ground. So that is the meaning, verse number 13. So we are now, when it comes to the, when it comes to the explanation of the 22 Bodhichittas, we are actually reading from verse 14. Okay. Verse 14, as I briefly mentioned, it is like the ground that produces. It is like the ground. The first Bodhicitta is like the ground that produces. Okay. That produces all other plants and trees and so forth. And as I mentioned, because when you achieve the middling of the first path of the 5 paths, then that acts as a basis for development of all qualities until to the state of Buddhahood. Okay. It is like ground that produces. That is the first. Then next one, the one for others is good like the gold. The one for this is the second Bodhicitta out of 22. That means now in this case of the second Bodhicitta, one focuses towards the well-being and benefit of other sentient beings. You have this mental attitude to help and benefit other sentient beings. So therefore it is really like a refined gold, which however much you put in the gold, put in the fire, it will not change its color or shape and so forth. It is really like the pure refined gold. Because when you reach this, when you develop this second Bodhicitta, then your wish to benefit, wish to do temporary benefit and long-term benefit will never change. It's like refined gold. Okay, and it proves it is purity. Then the third, it's like the waxing moon. Third is like the waxing moon means when you make effort and strive in the practice of the 6 perfections, then it's like a waxing moon. Okay, because your virtuous practices will grow higher and higher. And then the next is, the other should be understood as fire. The other should be understood as fire, meaning that when you develop this special sense of responsibility and generate this wish to have the higher spiritual qualities, then it's like a fuel that gets very, strong fire. And because of this special sense of responsibility, your previous qualities will flourish further. Just like when you put more fuel, then the flame of the fire will grow stronger and stronger. Okay. And then when you possess the perfection of practice of giving, then it's like so now we are reading verse number 15. The other should be understood as great treasure. Okay, great treasure. That means when you possess the wisdom and perfection of when you possess the perfection of giving, then it's like possessing a great treasure. Great treasure. Because if you have great treasure, then it will be able to satisfy the needs of many sentient beings, and it will never be exhausted. Okay, so that's the meaning. The other is like the source of precious gems. That means when you possess the perfection of morality, then it is like the source of many precious gems. Okay, as is said by Nagarjuna in his letter to the friend, that morality is like the ground where the moving and unmoving can get their support. So that morality becomes basis for all other higher qualities. So all precious qualities come from morality. So that is again very, very important. Out of the 3 training, also the first training which is extremely important, is morality, because morality becomes the foundation for developing concentration, for developing wisdom, and so forth. So that basically means when you observe pure morality, and which means you restrain the negative deeds and also accumulate positive deeds and also engage in benefiting others, then your mind is free from any kind of repentance and regret. Your mind will be completely cool and free. And when your mind is cool and free and calm, then you can develop all other qualities, including concentration, analytical meditation, and so forth. So that is the meaning. Okay, so here we should be able to clearly see that, as His Holiness always says, if it is possible to help others, help them. If not, at least do not harm. Okay. So in Buddhism, when we say morality, it is really not observing a discipline imposed upon you by others. Okay. So morality basically means restraining the negative deeds, cultivating the positive deeds, and then going out and helping others as much as possible. Okay. So it is a proper way of life. Simply said, it's a proper way of life. So when you have that proper way of life, it will be very easy for you to develop any other qualities. If that mental purity or morality is lacking, it will be rather difficult to develop any other qualities, because concentration will not be there, mindfulness will not be there, awareness will not be there, concentration will not be there, capacity to analyze things will not be there, because your mind is disturbed, your mind is not settled, and you can't develop any of these higher qualities. Okay, so there is the meaning. Now, when you possess the perfection of patience, then you will not easily be moved or disturbed and fluctuated by others' actions. So therefore, this is like an ocean. There are others to be known as similar to ocean. So that means the possession of perfection of patience, which is really like an ocean. And that is what we need in today's world also. Because if you don't have some kind of stability, integrity from your own side, through proper thinking and understanding the reality, then you can be easily tossed around by the circumstances, by the surrounding situations, by the societal environment, right? So therefore, it is really important to observe this patience, because an impatient person can't achieve anything. Okay. As Shantideva says in his Bodhichitta Avatara, forget about spiritual practitioners. Even ordinary people, like a farmer or a fisherman or fisherwoman, just to be able to gather crops, just to be able to catch fish, they have to have a lot of patience. If you watch a farmer or a fisherman working, outside in the field or near an ocean, near water, they stay there whole day, and many times in scorching heat. If you say, oh, it's too hot, I can't do farming, I can't catch fish, then you won't be able to do anything, right? So patience is very, very important. So patience to voluntarily accept suffering, patience that makes you undergo some hardship in developing spiritual qualities, and patience towards harms done by others. Okay. Because if you have that kind of patience, which is really like an ocean, then your mind will not be agitated. That's the most important thing. Because life is full of ups and downs. Situations can change anytime. Tragedies can come to us anytime. Okay, in many different forms, not necessarily war and killing and conflict, but even otherwise. It may be a pandemic, it may be a death of your family, relatives, and so forth. It may be you're losing the job, whatever, I'm not saying life is, a bundle of tragedy. I'm not saying that, but with happiness, there are also a lot of problems, sufferings. They are also bound to come, right? So therefore, on such occasions, if your mind doesn't have that patience, or what we call is this resilience, if you don't have that resilience, the capacity to bounce back, if you don't have that, then it will be very difficult. You will become vulnerable to small problems even. Okay. Okay. As Shantideva says in his Bodhichitta Avatar, where he says, you look at two different people, the coward and the brave. Okay. When the brave and the coward, these two people, when go to the battlefield, in the case of the brave person, even when he sees his own blood, he gets emboldened, becomes braver, and go into the conflict zone or war without hesitation. Now, if you are a coward, even when you see the blood of other people, you will faint and fall. That is what Shantideva says, you see. So the difference is only your mental attitude, right? For some people, challenge is wonderful. It's an opportunity. For others, they just want to remain in their comfort zone. Okay, so there's the difference. Difference is primarily your mental attitude, how you see things. So the point that is being made is that when you encounter these harms and sufferings and problems, you should not get, daunted, remain undaunted. Okay, so there's the meaning. There are others to be known as similar to ocean, one like Vajra and one like Mount Meru. So one like Vajra means that when you achieve the perfection of effort, then nothing can destroy your commitment. It is really like diamond, Vajra or diamond, meaning that when you achieve that perfection of effort, then nothing can shake you, means primarily your laziness can not disturb you then. Okay. Normally, when we have not reached that perfection of effort, then we go for small things. We opt laziness. Laziness is not just not doing things, but laziness is of many types. One is indolence, not doing anything. Another is having obsessive attachment to meaningless things. And you may be thinking that you are doing something, but from a more larger perspective, that is also a kind of laziness. Then laziness can also come in the form of your belittling yourself, you're discouraging yourself, thinking that how can I do this? I'm not educated, I'm not clever, I'm not intelligent, I don't have a good teacher or whatever. You come with all these excuses and then belittle yourself and don't make any effort. That is also one kind of laziness. So there are many types of lazinesses. But when you reach that perfection of effort, then you cannot be disturbed by any of this laziness, because your, effort means not just working hard, but it means having great mental delight in doing things that you want. Okay, when your mind is instilled with that delight, nobody can stop you. Just like somebody who is very fond of playing football, or somebody who is very fond of playing music. Okay, even if you say, okay, now it's time for lunch, now time for dinner, they'll say, let me play a little bit, let me sing a little bit. You see, right there. So you can see mental delight and joy in whatever you do is very important, especially when it comes to helping others, when it comes to cultivating inner positive qualities. There should be joy with the realization that this is what I should be doing as a human being. Okay, there are 100,000 things you can do in your life, but if you think carefully, many of these are really like pastime and not much meaning. Okay, I'm not saying you should not have fun. I'm not saying you should not enjoy, but there is a proper way of enjoying things. Not enjoying at the cost of others' misery. Not living a life at the cost of others' suffering. Okay? And doing the right thing. Then your mind will be full of joy, full of happiness. And this is the way to move from one spiritual ground to another spiritual ground, from one spiritual path to another spiritual path. Okay? And one like Mount Meru. One like Mount Meru means that when you achieve the perfection of concentration, then it's like Mount Meru. In other words, a very strong mountain. Just as that very solid, strong mountain remains there unmovable and nothing can shake that mountain. So similarly, because of your having reached that state of concentration, you will not be distracted by any other external factors. Verse number 16, one similar like being of medicine. Now, when you possess the perfection of wisdom, then it's like the king of medicine, because the king of medicine may be able to cure all kind of physical illnesses. So similarly, when you possess that wisdom perfection, you are able to remove all the illnesses of the two obscurations, the afflictive obscuration and the cognitive obscuration. You will be able to remove both of them. So therefore, this is like king of medicine. The other like a trusted friend. Now, when you possess the four immeasurable qualities, immeasurable loving kindness, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, immeasurable equanimity, when you possess these four immeasurable qualities, then it is really like a friend which can be trusted. Then you become a very trustworthy friend. Similar, like a very, very highly trustworthy friend, because you will never give up your followers. You will never give up your followers temporarily, or in the long run, you will not give them up. You will look after them. Okay, because you have that great joy, great, loving kindness. You have that great compassion. You have that great joy. When you have that great joy, you don't develop jealousy and other things of other people's achievement and so forth. And then the immeasurable equanimity. Okay, so this is how then you become a trustworthy friend of all sentient beings. And then when you possess the four individual realizations, then this is like a very melodious song, because then at that level you are able to give this pleasant teachings, pleasant and meaningful teachings, by which you will be able to invite the followers. Just like a great singer with a great voice, when he or she sings, everybody will come to listen to that person. Okay, so similarly, when you reach this level, then your teaching will have that capacity to attract others. Okay, so there's the meaning. Now, when you possess the four individual realization means individual understanding of the Dharma, individual understanding of the meaning that's taught in the Dharma, individual understanding of the words that is being used there, then individual understanding of confidence and so forth. Okay, and then when you possess the four reliances, then you are like a king. The other like a trusted friend, one like wish fulfilling gem, wish fulfilling gem. Wish fulfilling gem. I'm jumping a little bit now. So we were talking about this, possession of the four immeasurable qualities. Then after that, I missed one line. The next is what the other like a trusted friend. We read this one. The next is one like wish fulfilling gem. That means when you possess the four clairvoyances, when you possess the five clairvoyances, five precognitions, then it's like a precious gem. Because just as from the precious gem you get things that you want, you wish, so similarly, with the use of your five clairvoyances, you are able to guide sentient beings in accordance with their wish. Okay, that's one reason that Bodhisattvas also attempt to develop these clairvoyances. And the other should be understood as the sun. So that means when you possess the four ways of gathering disciples, followers, then it's like the sun. Just as when the sun rises, then it helps to ripen the crops. So similarly, when you possess these four ways of collecting disciples, then you have this capacity to mature the mind of the virtuous mind of sentient beings. The four ways of collecting disciples are: first, giving things, helping others by materially giving things, and then speaking pleasantly, which basically means giving Dharma teaching, and then third, asking others to live as is taught by the Dharma. And fourth is oneself living in accordance with what one has taught. Because if you simply ask others to do, and if you yourself don't practice, then they will not listen to you. Okay, this is what the teacher has been saying, but this is how he's living. Okay, so these are four ways of gathering disciples. So four ways of gathering disciple doesn't mean making others become a Buddhist. That's not the meaning. The meaning is that if you really want to help others to, lead to the path to Nirvana and liberation, then the first thing is you should not just talk, but you should actually materially help first. Then you become friend, then that person will be ready to listen to you. Then on the second level, you should give the interesting Dharma teaching. Then you should guide them, give advice, telling them to live like this. Then fourthly, you should yourself practice what you are preaching. So if you do that, naturally, followers will flock around you. They will come around you. Okay, so there's the meaning. There's the meaning. Then I missed this one, already I explained. The other is like the melodious tune of Gandharva smell eater. So that's what we already explained, the four individual knowledges. Okay, that I already explained. And the other should be understood like a king. So that means the four reliances. Possessing the four reliances is like a king who would not deceive his followers, his citizens, his people. Okay, the four reliances already. I think many of you might know this one. Four reliances means out of the teacher and the teaching, rely more on the teaching than on the teacher. This is important because most of us, we will run after the name and fame of a teacher, but this text says you should rely more on the teaching than on the teacher. Don't just run after the fame and name of person, but see what kind of teaching and guidance that the person is giving. And if the teaching is really reliable, beneficial, useful, then follow that teaching and the teacher who gives such teaching. Okay, so out of the two, the person who teaches and the teaching, pay more attention to the teaching than on the name and fame of the teacher. Second, when you follow the teaching, pay more attention to the meaning than on the beauty of the words. The teacher may be using many interesting words, but if it is devoid of meaning, just like the text where somebody is said to have composed a text, how to analyze the teeth of a crow. Okay. Number one, there's no teeth to the crow. In ancient times, it is said that somebody composed quite a big book, how to analyze the teeth of a crow. So therefore, when you talk about the scriptures, many scriptures, there are, I think, as far as I remember, there are 9 different types of scriptures. One is meaningless text. There are many texts in the world today which are meaningless, honestly said. Then there are other texts which gives the wrong meaning. Then there is a third text, teaching which gives the correct meaning. So the Buddha's teaching is said to be the one which gives the correct meaning. Then there are some teaching which is primarily for listening, just for listening, not for practice. And there are other texts which are written just for the sake of debating, for dry intellectual debating. But the Buddha's teaching is for practice. Okay? And then there are other texts which are written with the motivation to deceive others. Now, in case of many of the books that is written in terms of doing business, many of them are written to deceive and cheat people to get their money, right? So out of cunningness and deceitfulness, they write such text also. Okay. And then there are other texts which is devoid of compassion and love. And then there is a third level of teaching, text which is written or taught to help remove the sufferings of sentient beings. So that is the teaching of the Buddha. So out of these 9 forms of teachings and scriptures, the Buddha's teachings are meaningful teaching, teachings for removing the suffering, and for practice, not just for intellectual, debating. Okay. So therefore, rely more on the meaning than on the beauty of the words. Now, when it comes to understanding the meaning, rely more on the definitive meaning than on the interpretative meaning. Okay? Buddha gave many levels of teaching, primarily 2 categories of teaching. One is called interpretative teaching, another is called definitive teaching. Despite Buddha having gained ultimate insight into the way things are, he cannot teach everything directly to everybody because of different mental capacity, different mental disposition, and so forth. So therefore, he had to give 2 types of teachings. One, interpretative teaching, because for the time being, they can only digest such level of teaching and not the definitive teaching. For example, somebody whose mind is not ready, you cannot directly give teaching on emptiness. Okay? So it's a clever way to gradually guide, just like, depending upon the age level, we have kindergarten, then first class, second class, third class, fourth class, and so forth. So depending upon mental disposition, mental interest, Buddha gave 2 main levels of teaching, interpretative teaching and definitive teaching. Okay? So when it comes to understanding the meaning, rely on the definitive teaching than on the interpretative teaching, because the interpretative teaching is not definitive teaching. It has to be interpreted. It has to be explained. For example, this story of Ajatashatru, which I think explained earlier, who had killed his father, king, because somebody told him, unless you kill your father will not die and you will never become a king. So you should kill him. So with this advice from his very bad friend, he killed his father. And having killed his father, he sunk into remorse. And remorse means basically he sunk into depression. And to come out of this depression, somebody suggested that the person who can help you is the Buddha. So he goes to the Buddha, seeks his advice. Then the Buddha said, nothing to worry. Father and mother are to be killed. Okay, because he had faith to the Buddha, and when hearing that father and mother are to be killed, he thought, I have done the right thing. So he came out of depression and came back to his senses. And when he came out of the depression and he's in his sense, then the Buddha said, look, when I said father and mother are to be killed, I'm not talking about your physical father and physical mother, but I'm talking about the ignorance and action, contaminated action, which are really father and mother, which produces all other negative emotions and sufferings and problems. So it is through this skillful way he was able to, guide that Ajatashatru on the right path. Okay, so therefore, out of when it comes to understanding the meaning, rely more on the definitive meaning than on the interpretative meaning. Now, when it comes to properly understanding the meaning, rely more on the primordial mind, or simply said something like wisdom mind, than on the grosser level of the mind. If you try to use or understand emptiness by using a grosser level of mind, you will not be able to understand it precisely. So therefore, the ultimate meaning should be understood by a primordial pristine mind, a wisdom mind. Okay, so these are called the four reliances. So through this process of practice, all your learning and teachings will not be wasted, will not be lost. Okay, and when you possess both the merit and the wisdom, then it's really like a treasure house which is filled with many types of wealth. Okay, because then you have all kinds of wealth of merit and wealth of wisdom. Okay, and when you possess the 37 limbs to enlightenment, then this is like having entered the highway, national highway. Similarly, the other, like a treasure house, should be understood like a highway. Okay, this is possessing the 37 limbs to enlightenment is like the highway. Okay, that's the highway to achieve enlightenment. Now, in this 37 limbs to enlightenment, you have the first set is called the four mindfulness. Okay, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the feeling, mindfulness of the mind, mindfulness of the phenomena. Okay, and then four pure abandonments, and then four miraculous feet, then 5 sense faculties, 5 powers, and 7 limbs to enlightenment, and then 8 noble paths. So these are the 37 limbs to enlightenment. Okay. So out of these 37 limbs to enlightenment, with regard to the first set, the practice of the four mindfulness, that is basically the practice that you are told to do when you study the first noble, out of the four noble truths, the first noble truth, which is the truth of suffering. Okay, when Buddha taught the four noble truth, the first was the truth of suffering. Truth of suffering is explained with 4 features. Okay, impermanence, suffering, emptiness, selflessness. So that basically means that you should maintain your mindfulness towards your body, towards your feeling, towards your mind, and towards the rest of phenomena, especially what must be discarded and what must be adopted. That's the point. Okay, so the mindfulness can be maintained on many other things, but you should primarily use this towards yourself, which means observe your body and see its reality. The reality of the body is that it is unclean, it's impure. And why should we reflect on that? We should reflect on that to see the reality. And why should we see the reality? We should see the reality so that we will be able to remove unnecessary pride, arrogance, and grasping to one's own body by perceiving it as very pure and very clean and so forth. And then look at your feeling. Maintain mindfulness towards your feeling. Out of 3, in terms of your feeling, you have, feeling craving towards happiness, and feeling craving not to have suffering, and then neutral feeling. Okay, so based on that feeling, you develop that obsession, you develop that grasping. And that feeling of grasping develops on the basis of your body. Okay, so that must be understood. Then, thirdly, look at your mind. Your mind is impermanent. So your feeling is impermanent. Your mind is normally when we talk about oneself, you tend to equate your mind as the self, right? So when you reflect properly to the nature of that mind, then you will be able to get a sense of yourself, which is very much linked to the mind, but there is no permanent self. There is no permanent. You will be able to, mind is momentarily changing. So thereby you will be able to understand there is no permanent self, but saying that there is no permanent self does not mean that when you die, the self will come to an end. Because even when you die, the mind will continue. So with that, the self will also continue. Right? So therefore, you will be able to get rid of these two extremes. Seeing the self as permanent and seeing that the self will completely come to an end with the death of the body. Okay. And then with regard to the rest of the phenomena, especially what to adopt and what to discard, if you maintain mindfulness, then you will see all of these phenomena same as we already studied, same in having no independent inherent existence. Now, precursor to this practice of mindfulness is breathing. Watch your breath, coming in, going out, and things like that, which I'm sure most of you are familiar. Okay, so this is briefly speaking like that. Oh yeah. So the possessing these 37 limbs to enlightenment is really like the highway. This is highway because to these 37 limbs to enlightenment, all the three yanas, they travel on this path. Okay. And in addition to these 37 limbs to enlightenment, when you cultivate bodhicitta, then the superior beings of the Mahayana practice, they will also travel on this path. Now, possessing karma abiding in special insight, which means possessing shamatha and vipassana, is really like having found a good mount, an obedient good mount. Mount means something like horse, which is good, docile, and obedient. Because once you achieve such a state of karma abiding in special insight, you will achieve that state which is called non-abiding nirvana, which is none other than the state of the Buddhahood. The state of the Buddhahood is called non-abiding nirvana because you will then not fall into the extreme of nirvana just for oneself, which is called solitary nirvana. And you will also not fall into the extreme of falling into the cycle existence. Okay, if you remain in cycle existence in samsara, that is one extreme. Now, even if you come out of samsara and achieve liberation, but just for yourself, that is not complete enlightenment. That is not Buddhahood. That is also one extreme. This is called extreme because you may have achieved liberation for yourself, but what about the rest of the brother or sister sentient beings? Therefore, your ultimate goal should not be just any nirvana, but it should be non-abiding nirvana. A nirvana which does not abide either in samsara or in the solitary nirvana just for yourself. So that means a nirvana where you have achieved complete omniscience, complete enlightenment, where you never give up working for the benefit of other sentient beings. Okay, so there's the meaning. So when you achieve this combination of karma abiding and special insight, then you will go into this city of omniscience, Buddhahood. Okay. I think we can stop here today.
Okay, Geshe-la, thank you very much. Now we can, we have time for some questions. And while I'm waiting for our participants to send me the questions, just a moment, let me see. Yeah, there are no questions.
Yeah, today is our second last session. And next, we have one more session next time. As I promise, until the end of April, then we stop.
Okay.
We'll complete the chapter on Bodhichitta in the next session. Yeah.
Okay, Geshe-la. And we still have some questions that were sent to us between the sessions.
Okay.
So I will start with them.
Yeah.
So one of them is, Geshe-la, you said last time that we are clinging to our limited picture of the world where everything rotates around human beings, their needs or pains. Do you think that we need to think more about animals, for example, to overcome this limited overview? Will it help?
Yeah, in Buddhism, we talk about thinking about well-being of all sentient beings, which obviously includes animals. So we need to think about all sentient beings. But as I always say, think globally, act locally. Okay. Those sentient beings which we have to contact on a regular daily basis and in a more aggressive way is not so much of the animals, but primarily the human beings. So therefore, it is important to know how to deal properly with human beings. Then, of course, with animals also.
Thank you, Geshe-la. And the next question, just a moment. Sometimes it is being said that we should make efforts to develop patience and overcome anger, for example. But we also hear that it is impossible to overcome anger and its leftover stains altogether. As for that, we need direct realization of emptiness. Should we even try to fight anger then if the emptiness has not been yet realized? Isn't it a futile endeavor, since without a direct realization of emptiness, it keeps on coming back in unfavorable situations?
Your question reminded me a remark His Holiness the Dalai Lama made some time before, where His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, if you can afford to go to a 5-star hotel, it is good. But even if you can't afford to go to 5-star hotel, you will never say, I will not eat if I can't go to a 5-star hotel. So even if you have not realized emptiness, it is of course important to make attempt to increase your patience, because it is through this systematic process that we gain enlightenment. There is no push button enlightenment. Whether it's practice of patience or practice of morality, whatever, it has to come slowly and gradually. Yes, I agree that it is not easy, because we are very strongly habituated with all the negative ways of thinking. Plus, we are surrounded by all this interesting human beings, the influence of the society. It is all there. And then especially the overwhelming influence of the shiny gadgets and things that is flooding the market. So as I said earlier, the negative emotions are here with us. Then objects for negative emotions are there. They are also there. Negative emotions also present. Objects for negative emotions are plenty, especially in today's world. They are also there. then our improper way of engaging into the object is also there. So when the fire and the fuel, the dry fuel and the fire, dry wood and the fuel, fire come together, it's bound to produce conflagration of fire. So therefore we need mindfulness, alertness, and so forth, right? So what I'm saying is, although it will be wonderful if we become enlightened in one day or at least 1 year or something, but it's simply impossible. Now that does not mean to say you can't make progress. You know, if you look at human life, it's not only just studying Buddhism, but you may be a very hot-tempered person when you are young. Your blood is warm, you're energetic. You may be a very angry, hot-tempered person. But as you grow older and older, deal with many difficult situations in life, you become a little bit matured. Naturally, you become a little bit more patient. So that shows the only way to be happy and peaceful is to improve patience, right? So our life's lesson tells us that patience is important, and it can be done slowly but surely.
Thank you very much, Geshe. And I see that we have a question from Snehi Gupta. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Namaste, Geshe. I had a question on the last of the 4 reliances, where you were saying, to rely on sort of the primordial wisdom mind and not on coarse mind. And it reminded me of, this term non-conceptual thought. And I've always struggled to understand, what does non-conceptual thought mean?
Non-conceptual thought means, there are 2 ways of. Now here we are not talking about the eye sense consciousness seeing the object, okay? That eye consciousness, eye sense consciousness sees object directly. It is non-conceptual, okay? There's nothing in between the eye sense consciousness and the object. You are able to see the naked truth. So that's non-conceptual. But here we are not talking about that. We are talking about the mind itself. The mind itself, the mental consciousness, has a conceptual level, non-conceptual level. Conceptual level means those thoughts, that you have picked up based on your past experiences, or those thoughts that you generate, planning for the future and things like that. Okay, you have some idea, but there is always, you have this idea through a generic image. It's not direct. But when you gradually, practice towards that object, and then the mind becomes clearer, and then the mind then becomes non-conceptual, in the sense the mind will be able to see that object just as your eye consciousness is seeing the object, as clear as that. No generic image between. It's like for example, if I try to see you with this cloth, I mean, this one is not that, thin, but if I have a, thin, just like this, the Indian women's sari, veil, if you use that and see, still you are able to see that person, but not completely clear. But when I remove that veil, that piece of cloth, then I'm able to see you directly with my eye sense consciousness. So it will be something like that. Okay. So for that, you need to repeatedly get your mind habituated with the object.
Thank you, Geshe. It's just such an alien concept. I couldn't think of any example.
Yeah, one example that I can give you, another example that I can give you is, for example, let us say you are in America. I don't know where you are, but let us say you are in America. Okay. Now, even when you are physically in America, and then think about your friends, say in India, the faces of those friends in India with whom you have more familiarity, more affection, that will come more clearer to your mind. Something like non-conceptual. But those others with whom you have not so much familiarity, you will get some vague idea, but not so clear. So it's something like that.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Geshe-la. Yes, the next question is from Vera. She would like to clarify the idea of clear or pure thoughts or maybe pure intentions. What methods should the lay people use in this regard?
Oh, pure thought, especially when if you're talking in terms of a universal sense of responsibility or altruism, something like that. As I mentioned earlier, you need to have a clear understanding that all sentient beings, or at least all human beings, are same in wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. Despite the sameness in wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, we are all same in having a lot of problems and sufferings, and we are not having enough peace and happiness. There also we are same. There are so many similarities. Then we are all same that one day we'll all go from this earth. We'll all die. So when you see everybody from that larger perspective of sameness, as we already discussed, read in the text, then you don't see any reason why you should take so much care only of you and your relatives and not others. Right? Of course, it is easier said than done, but at least mentally you will bridge that gap. And once you're able to bridge that gap mentally, your behavior and attitude to others will also change. Okay? So your motivation makes a huge difference. For example, when you see somebody right in the beginning, if your motivation is to see that person as a stranger with whom you have nothing to do, things like that, you will develop this feeling of distantness. Why should I care about this person? You know, I'm seeing this person for the first time, and that person also doesn't look very friendly. Okay, then you develop this distantness. But instead of that, if you see that person, okay, this person is coming closer to me, okay, maybe she is going to talk to me, things like that, you know. Anyway, you know, we are all human beings. There's no need any introduction to say that she is a human being, I'm a human being. So that is the most important thing. Then from which country that person came from, whether men or women belong to this nation, that nation, these are secondary, as I already mentioned. The most important thing is we are all same human being with similar kind of emotions. Due to cultural differences, there may be some differences, but basically the big thing is we all want happiness, do not want suffering. Okay, that makes huge difference. Like in my own case, I'm not a great practitioner or anything like that, but I also studied all these things. And, you know, even stones, if you put it in the water for a long time, it will get some dampness, at least outside. So I'm like that, you know, having exposed to the teaching for so many years, it may have some impact to my life. So in the institute, the library where I stay, many people come, a number of people come to see me. For example, today also I had a group of 8 people coming to see me, and I found myself talking to them as we have met them many times before. And they also really enjoyed, you know, they were not hesitant to share anything. They were all laughing, smiling, you know. So you can have that, and through this way you can make your life happy, right? So that's important. It's important. The difference is only superficial. Difference is very superficial. If you talk to that person a little bit, you will find that person has also many good qualities. That person also has many difficulties and problems. And some of the problems you can also help, you know, by talking to that person or doing some other things. You can also help that person. You never know, you see. So with this kind of approach, we can all help each other in this way or that way. Helping means not just giving money, okay? Just by being nice, just by being kind and encouraging that person will change the life of that person, right? So therefore, the pure thought basically means the wish to help others. Why should you have this wish to help others? If you think like this, then you should ask the question, why should I have this wish to help myself? Why do I wish others help me? You have this wish that others help you, not because you are special, not because you are a doctor or, Geshe or things like that, a celebrity, things like that. You wish others to help you because you want happiness, do not want suffering. Similarly, others also, whoever they are, they may be in the lower strata or lower rung of the society or in a very high, rung of the ladder of the society, but we are basically same, same. We are all in the samsara. We are all running, for happiness and not getting enough of it. Whoever we are, we all have our personal tragedies, problems, things like that, right? So therefore, as I always say, we are really like traveling together in a small boat in a turbulent sea, If we are all traveling together in a turbulent sea, the only sensible thing is we should at least smile and help each other, you see. Okay, and how turbulent the world is today, I don't have to explain, you see. I don't have to just talk about the samsara explained in Buddhism, but what is happening right now, world is turbulent, you see. So at such a turbulent time, difficult time, the best way to help others is to smile, to be nice, to give hope, encouragement, you see. And if you live your life meaningfully, even if your day is last day today, there's nothing to regret, right? So enjoy with that kind of attitude. So to make a long story short, the motivation, good thought, means the wish to help others minimize their suffering problems.
Thank you very much, Geshe-la. And speaking of the turbulent world today, the next question is from Roman. And he's wondering, how can we deliver from anger those who have all the rights to be angry with us?
It's not the solution. That's the thing I've been saying. The Buddha has always instructing, do those things which is the solution of the problem, which helps address the problem. Okay, you may have a right to get angry to those who are doing wrong things, but if that anger only creates problem in you and doesn't solve any problem, then what is the use? No use at all. So therefore, Nagarjuna, in one of his teaching, he beautifully says, if you want to control the enemy, you should improve your qualities. It is useless to have harmful intentions, because if you develop harmful intentions like anger, it will harm you, not the enemy.
Geshe-la, and if we are talking about someone who is angry with us, can we deliver him or her from this anger? Can we do something for them to be not angry with us?
That depends upon the situation. What is the situation? In some cases, yes. In some cases, yes. I will give you some example, which I did in my own life also. Like sometimes, without much reason, some people might come into your room with very angry, face. Then what you should do? You have no idea why this person is angry. Okay, then instead of reacting angrily to that person, if you do that, it is adding fuel to the fire. So instead of doing that, you should smile and say, what happened? What happened? Why you're so angry? What happened? Please sit down. If you want to touch him, Okay, say, sit down. What is the problem? Can I solve that problem? Let us discuss, So immediately in many cases, immediately the person melts down. Then he would even start saying, sorry, I was having this problem, so I expressed my anger to you, things like that, you see. So don't become defensive immediately. Normally the problem is we don't listen to others. We immediately become defensive. That's the problem, right? Now, in some cases, it is better not to answer, say anything. If somebody came angry and is about to say something, then you should again gently say, sorry, I'm very busy right now. Please, gently. I'll see you after 2 hours or something like that. Then can you imagine that person will remain angry for 2 hours? After 2 hours, his anger will cool down. He will realize his mistake and he will never come to see you. Or even if he comes to see you, he will come with a different, expression, right? So that's the thing, right? If you put more fuel into the fire, that it's but natural that the fire will become stronger. So instead of putting more wood in the fire, put water. And now whether you are able to do that or not is dependent upon how much you have respect and love to that person. In general, whether you know somebody or not, that's why in Buddhism we say we should develop loving kindness towards everybody. If you genuinely have that loving kindness to everybody, then even if somebody comes very angry towards you, your attitude will be different. Just like your children coming to you very angry, right? If your children, your wife, your husband, who you love very much, come to you with very angry, face, still you will try to help that person with calmness, so you're able to solve the problem. But then in some cases, of course, this tactic will not work. So in some cases, it may be better to go away from that person. Don't continue to present yourself as a target to that person. So you have to, there's no one solution. You have to see the situation.
Geshe, thank you very much for this wonderful advice about loving kindness. I think that this is really a solution for every problem. And we have a question from Jacqueline. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you very much for your precious teachings. I was wondering if you're going through, if you realize that you have a yucky part in you. I get grumpy and I started to feel sorry for myself. Is there a way, because I should be rejoicing when you find out something bad about yourself, but do you have any advice on how to handle that?
Not rejoicing. There's nothing to rejoice, but if
but the fact that you've admitted to something,
true. In that sense, yeah. The one is that when you find bad qualities in you, you should be happy in the sense that you are truly a genuine human being. It's only a genuine human being who will have happiness, suffering, problems, bad qualities, good qualities. It means you are a human being. Okay? So therefore, don't feel too frustrated with such observations. And also realize that you are not Buddha. You are not completely enlightened. So this unhealthy traits will be there. But as you rightly mentioned, it is good that at least you know what is bad as bad. So that is the first step to enlightenment. Okay, because you saw it is bad. So now the next time is not enough to say bad, but to distance yourself from those bad qualities. Just like distancing yourself from, smoking or drinking or things like that. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Geshe. Do we still have time for one or two questions?
Okay.
Because we still have some questions.
Yeah.
The next question, in a difficult situation, it is important to understand an illusionary nature of all things. But when people are getting sick, or even worse, being killed around you, it is quite difficult to think about the illusionary nature of samsara. What needs to be done not to lose this view of the illusory nature of samsara in such situations?
No, the problem is there because you're not able to see everything as illusionary. You still have a lot of grasping to the conventional truth. So that's why number one, you need to understand that seeing everything of its illusionary nature does not mean things do not exist. Conventionally, things exist. Therefore, things die, things are born, things are produced, things like that. Okay? But, as we discussed already, but things that are born, things that are produced, things that exist, none of these things have permanent, independent, inherent existence. Right? So therefore, they are illusionary or illusion. Even though they seem to us as having independent, permanent existence, they don't have. Therefore, what we are perceiving, is illusion in that sense. Okay? So therefore, just like in the dream, it's in the sutra, it's very beautifully mentioned that there is a very young woman who got a dream of giving birth to a very handsome son. So she was very happy in the dream. Oh, now I have a son, a very handsome son. She was very happy. Then next moment she gets another dream of the death of the son. And she was extremely sad for the death of this handsome son. But when she experiences this both joy and suffering because she was under illusion, she was dreaming. But when she woke up, she was able to see clearly that there's no the joy and the sadness that she developed while dreaming has no meaning at all. She was experiencing that because she was sleeping, she was dreaming. Now she woke up and none of this is true. So similarly, when we wake up to the ultimate truth, ultimate reality, that things don't have independent, inherent existence, then there is not much left to develop too much joy or too much sadness. Okay, that doesn't mean you will not feel sad. You may feel sad, you may develop some kind of joy, but not to the extreme. Okay, you will be able to see that at the end of the day, things will go in this way or that way. Okay,